Welcome back to Footy Classified. Brad Scott, the coach of Essendon, sitting second on the ladder and flying at the moment as our special guest. We'll speak about the Bombers shortly. He comes in a unique situation as a coach of an AFL team, has coached two AFL teams, been in a system since he was a teenager, but also ran the football operations at the AFL. Couldn't have a better guest tonight to speak about a number of issues. Brad, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Ed.
Mate, can I just set this up for you on and we heard a grab from you early on there. Giving the player leeway was to try and keep the game going so we wouldn't have ball ups and congestion. Then we had a situation where we couldn't dump a player anymore because concussion came into play. And then it's gone to where it's got to, and the AFL said, we won't have any rule changes, but 11 rounds in, we've got a rule change, and probably a good one too. But can I get your response to where this has all been meandering?
Yeah, well, I think the rule is still there. I would say that it's not a rule change, but it's certainly a change in the interpretation of the way the rule's written. So, I like that. I like the fact that the AFL is responding and not just saying we're not going to change something, but then actually directing the umpires to change something. And I think what personally as a coach, what I want is communication, and I want clarity. And I think the AFL generally are very good at that when you seek it. But you saw from the introduction there are a lot of tackles which people are confused. And to hear Travis Boak, who's 300 game player, say he's confused is a concern.
You mentioned, and we'll use that word, the edge, and that's about playing on the edge, being tough in the tackle, and we saw a number of those occasions. The game's on the line, you're deep in defence, you want to take the player, but how do you coach that? Because you could lose a really good player if he does what he's asked from you, but he takes the player to ground.
Yeah, well, we've addressed this as a club. We've spoken at length about... because, Jeff Gleeson at the Tribunal, in explaining some dangerous tackles and the player's duty of care, has clearly said that if the tackler pins an arm and takes a player to ground and the player hits his head, then that's a dangerous tackle. And when asked what should the player do, the Tribunal's response is let the player go. So it's very hard to ask players to when they've got a player in a tackle, to let them go.
It's the antithesis of the game.
And so what's happening now is the ball carrier's holding onto the ball longer because they know they can't get dumped. And so they've got more time to get rid of the ball. So I think there's a reminder again that prior opportunity, once you've had prior opportunity, you don't get a second opportunity to get rid of the ball.
Yep.
So once you've had prior, and the second you get tackled, it's holding the ball.
Let's have a look at the AFL's release today on the way they're going to adjudicate. The first one, I think it was a really bad example, to be honest. I don't want to be into the AFL, but this one, they said that this is where they freeze it and say that's where the whistle will be blown. Well, as it turns out, the whistle was blown 1/25th of a second later, so probably not the right example. We might have seen the Mac Andrew one. This one, another one out of the centre. Lachie Neale's had it for a while. The whistle was where the whistle would be blown. It was actually shortened up. This one I'm not quite sure about with Campbell Chester. I'm not sure what he was supposed to do there, but that's where it's going to not get everyone on the same page. This one, of course, with Rowell, it's not the North Melbourne play, it's Rowell. 360 gets it away. That will still be play on. And this one, another 360 plus. But it makes sense to me. Brad, what do you think on that one? You wouldn't really complain about any of those, would you?
No, I think that in the play on there we saw Scotty Pendlebury run down Patrick Cripps. That's probably a better example where Paddy had prior opportunity, was tackled, and holding the ball wasn't paid. They're the ones we want paid instantly. But I think that we're directing the players now that you can't dump them. We don't want to let them go. We can't pull them down, particularly after the Aaron Norton situation, which I think is a concern. So, players are in a difficult bind. So I think our instruction to our players is don't release them, don't dump them, pin them, and hope the umpire blows the whistle a bit quicker for a ball up or holding the ball. Let's
roll the Norton vision, because this is interesting, because this is almost a grappling or judo hold to stop a player getting the ball away. And what do you call it in the rugby league again? A hip drop.
Yeah.
A hip drop.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying it was necessarily a hip drop, but they've actually just got that out of the game. This is horrific for Aaron Norton. That could have snapped his leg. It's bad enough as it is. But clearly that was to try and stop him getting the kick away because you can't put him to the ground.
That's right. So I think when the arms are pinned and the umpire's got to, if there's prior opportunity, play holding the ball. If there isn't prior, call a ball up. And I think there was a concern for a while that people didn't want secondary stoppages, so the umpires held the whistle.
Yeah.
I think they've got to blow it a bit quicker.
Just roll the vision, if we can, of the umpires at Collingwood training, so they were brought in. And you go first, Damo.
This is how it will be policed on the weekend, and whether we do get a significant change in the number of free kicks and how it's policed, well, you'd think so, given what's happened today. And as we look at what they're now going to instruct players to do in these moments, Brad, I'll refer you to what Sam McClure said on another umpiring matter before Lordy starts talking about Essendon. But you were in the studio for the Sam McClure report on the communication off-field with umpires on ground within contest. Your take on that?
Yeah, I'd be concerned if there's direction to umpires in play or regarding decisions. I know that the way the umpires coach, certainly when I was there, was in-game coaching around positioning. So at the breaks, like a coach would speak to a player at the breaks around their positioning. And I think that's a good thing to help the umpires with their positioning. But coaching them on their decision-making in-game is a concern because the umpiring's hard enough. You don't want umpires second-guessing themselves.
Do you need affirmation as an umpire?
I think everyone likes to be told they're doing a good job.
But if you're not being told, do you think you're being left out?
Look,
Am I being... what's gaslighted is the new term, isn't it?
Yeah. I think
ghosted.
I think it's more coaching umpires on positioning so they get the best view of a decision is the right thing, but certainly not on what decision to play. Yeah.
Brad, second on the ladder at the Bombers, and I want to take you back to something that Jesse Hogan said last year. I'm not sure if you recall what he had to say about the time they beat you by 126 points in round 23, and here's what Jesse Hogan had to say about that game in particular.
I was getting played back shoulder, religiously. The two opponents I had, they were just sitting on my back shoulder, so I don't think I've had that many lead-ups in the whole year with what I had yesterday. So, yeah, I haven't played in a game with that much space in ever. That was it. I don't think I've ever played an NFL game with that much space, to be fair.
So that could hurt as a coach, I suppose. And then the week after, you lost by 70 points to Collingwood, yet, 11 weeks on, or whatever it is that you're sitting second on the ladder. Did those losses, because you're going really well up until round 15, did those losses steel you to say, OK, it was a solid year, but this last month wasn't good, and readdress potentially how the off-season was going to look?
I don't think we needed.
Yeah.
We needed to revisit it to have a really solid pre-season. I mean, we were very clear of, even when on the surface we were going well, we knew we had a lot of work to do, and I consistently said we had a lot of work to do. Even regardless of the last two rounds of the year, it wouldn't have changed my view of the work we had to do in the pre-season. But now I think it's, when I started, I went through the Essendon coaching process. I did my own analysis of the competition, and I had Richmond as the second best list in quality, depth in the competition. 18 months on, that looks very different.
Yeah.
I know injuries played a big part in that, but all it says to me is that the competition's really tight. And if you drop off a little bit, you can get horribly exposed on any week.
When you say get the job, sometimes you can't get exactly what you want in year one because you come in and there might be coaches that are locked in or staff that are there, list that you want. How long does it take, you think, to get exactly what you particularly want as a coach?
Well, I think that even the term exactly what I want is not the way I'd like to operate. I mean, I want to really, with Craig Vozzo, a really solid CEO who has a solid understanding of football, and modern football departments now are well resourced. And I'm a big believer in that. I'm the head coach, but these are my responsibilities, and we have other people who feel their responsibilities. So I'm certainly not coming in, and I took 12 months to observe the footy department and certainly to make some tweaks where they needed to be tweaked. But Daniel McPherson's our GM of footy, Craig Vozzo's our CEO, and they play their role, and I'm very big on just playing mine. On
that then, you mentioned resourced. So did you always harbour a desire to see what it would be like to coach a resource club like Essendon? Yeah, it was certainly eye-opening going from the Eddie Maguire, as president of Collingwood, and I had 3 fantastic years at Collingwood as an assistant coach, and then going to North Melbourne in an era of no soft caps where it was a stark difference. The difference now is that even clubs who do have the resources, they're capped on their spending, and I think that's something that all clubs would like to see go up, because while the competition's even in terms of spending, I think an increase in the soft cap is necessary as well. Can I ask one further? That competitive balance, a bit like the tooth fairy. It sounds great, but it's not real. You've coached North Melbourne, Essendon, been at AFL House. Will we ever get competitive balance from your point of view? Everyone
want something but want to take away from another club?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question because, you know, there are some people, you know, Jeff Walsh is one of the people the AFL have brought in to look at competitive balance, but it's so multifaceted. It's not just, you know, whether it's the fixture, whether it's free agency, you know, everything's lacks balance in our competition at the moment. And, you know, I had my eyes wide open at North Melbourne as to, you know, some of the competitive balance issue in terms of attracting players and how difficult that was. So, you know, it's certainly, Essendon's a very well-run club, very well-resourced, but the soft cap has limited the advantage you can get from that.
Brad, you made some comments last week after Harrison Jones was pinged for a tackle by the match review office and chose as a club to not take it to the tribunal. You said it was too punitive. Prior to that, you lost Peter Wright for a different reason. Can I just get you please to expand on what you meant by that? And having sat in the football operations chair at the AFL, now coaching a club, what it is that you want to have happen in these moments and how you want clubs to be able to deal with them?
Well, I think that the concern that we had, and it's really important, particularly for our members who probably can't understand why we wouldn't challenge both of those decisions. And Peter's was directly referred to the tribunal. And we had a significant concern that if we didn't plead guilty, that Peter Wright would have got 6 weeks and not 4 weeks. And so really all we wanted was an opportunity to plead our case. And certainly in Harrison Jones's case, you know, we would have liked to have challenged that, but the way the rules are written at the moment, they're certainly, the AFL have written the rules so that it's very difficult to overturn a tribunal decision. So, and I think people think it's a...
Is it a bad thing though, isn't it, the fact that they run the game and they want to and have the right to determine what an incident should be? Yeah,
I think that's right, but I think a club should also have an opportunity to argue their case. Now, the AFL would say you do have an opportunity to argue your case, but, you know, then they charge you 10 grand and take it out of your soft cap.
Yep, we could talk about this all night. Brad, good luck, mate. The last question to you. Heading into the second half of the season, there's a lot of optimism at Bomberland for the first time for a long time. The crowds are back. It's really exciting. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I feel great. I mean, I feel mostly really, really happy for our supporters. I mean, whether we play at MCG or Marvel Stadium, the support we get is overwhelming. Yeah. It's the one thing that I keep saying, you know, the coming back into footy, I've just been overwhelmed at the support of the Essendon fans, and they're excited, and we don't want to dampen that excitement, but our players have got to stay focused on the task ahead.
Good on you, mate. Good luck.
Great.
Always great to have you here, and thank you for your absolute honest answers and to the point. Thank you, mate.
Pleasure.